Scamander River, Troy, 1250 BCE. Dawn breaks slowly over the plain. A pale light spills across the low ground between the river and the walls of Troy, catching on bronze. Helmets, spearheads, shield rims, thousands of them, motionless for now. The air is cool, heavy with mist rising from the Scamander. Somewhere in the distance, a horse snorts. Leather creaks. Men shift their weight and wait. Beyond the plain, the city stands. Troy's walls rise from the earth in layered stone, thick and unforgiving, built to endure both siege and time. From the towers, Trojan defenders look down on the field where fate has returned once again. They have watched this ground for years, watched enemies land from the sea, watched camps grow into settlements, watched seasons pass without resolution. Below the walls, the Achaean host forms its lines. Ships lie drawn up along the shore behind them, a silent reminder that there is no home behind this army, only the sea. Princes and kings stand among common warriors, bronze bright against linen and leather. Agamemnon commands, but he does not stand alone. This war has never belonged to one man. It belongs to pride, to alliance, to honor claimed and contested. Across the field, the Trojans gather in response. Hector is here, the city's shield, moving among his men with practiced calm. Behind him stand allies drawn from across Anatolia, bound to Troy by oath and necessity. They know what failure means. The walls protect families, temples, memory itself. Between the two forces stretches open ground, flat, exposed, offering no shelter. A killing space shaped by geography and choice. No one knows how this day will end. No one knows whose story will survive it. But as the sun climbs and the mist begins to burn away, one truth becomes clear. This is the Battle of Troy. Long before the armies face one another on the plains of Troy, the war is already old. By the middle of the 13th century BCE, the eastern Mediterranean is bound together by fragile threads of trade, diplomacy, and rivalry. Great kingdoms rise and fall not only by force, but by access to copper and tin, to grain routes, to harbors that open onto the Aegean and beyond. Power is measured in ships as much as soldiers, and wealth moves across the sea in convoys that can enrich a city or starve it into submission. Troy stands at the center of this world. Perched near the narrow waterways linking the Aegean to the Black Sea, the city controls a crossroads few can ignore. Merchant ships pass beneath its gaze. Overland routes converge near its gates. To allies, Troy is a partner. To rivals, an obstacle. Its wealth is visible in stone walls and storerooms, in the ability to endure long years of pressure without collapse. Across the sea, in the palaces of Mycenaean Greece, another system of power takes shape. Kings rule from fortified centers, Mycenae, Pylos, Tyrans, bound together by marriage, oath, and necessity. These are warrior societies, built on raiding, tribute, and fragile alliances. No single ruler commands them all, but in moments of shared interest, one can rise to lead. Agamemnon of Mycenae becomes that figure, not by unanimous devotion, but by force of wealth, status, and leverage over the others. Between these worlds, tension grows. Hittite records speak of a city called Wailusa, a place many scholars identify with Troy, caught between greater powers and internal instability. Treaties are signed. Alliances shift. The region is not peaceful, it is managed. And management fails when ambition presses too hard. Ancient tradition will later reduce the cause of war to a single act, a woman taken, an honor violated. But wars of this scale do not begin over one insult alone. They begin when long-standing pressures finally find a spark. Control of trade, prestige among rival kings, the need to assert dominance in a world where weakness invites erasure. For the Achaean leaders, Troy becomes the proving ground. A successful campaign promises wealth, reputation, and unity through victory. Failure risks fracture at home and humiliation abroad. For years, their forces remain far from home, sustained by supply, plunder, and persistence. The war becomes a constant, not a single battle, but a grinding presence shaping a generation of warriors. Inside Troy, the strain is no less severe. The city survives, but survival is not victory. Allies are drawn in. Resources are consumed. Each season brings the same question: how long can endurance replace resolution? Troy's walls are strong, but walls do not fight alone. At some point, the enemy must be met in the open. Now that moment has arrived. The long years of siege, skirmish, and stalemate narrow toward a single day on the plain. What diplomacy could not settle, what walls could not end, will be decided by men standing face to face beneath the sun. The world that led to this moment, trade routes, treaties, ambitions, fades behind the lines forming on the field. Only the reckoning remains. The land itself draws the armies together. West of Troy, the plain stretches outward from the city's walls, sloping gently toward the sea. It is open ground, too open to hide movement, too flat to favor defense. To the north runs the Scamander River, slow and shallow in places, but wide enough to shape approach and retreat. In the dry months, its banks harden. In wet seasons, they turn treacherous. Every path across this ground is known. Every rise and dip has been watched for years. This is not unfamiliar territory. For nearly a decade, Achaean forces have lived along this coast. Their ships are drawn up on the shore, forming a second fragile line of defense. Behind them lies only water. If the army breaks here, there is no organized withdrawal, only flight to the ships or slaughter on the beach. The geography binds them to the fight as tightly as any oath. The Trojans understand this. From the city, roads descend toward the plain in controlled channels, gates open only when needed, releasing forces that can strike and fall back under the protection of the walls. Troy's defenders have used this advantage before, choosing when to engage, when to withdraw, when to wait. But patience has limits. Allies cannot remain forever. Supplies do not replenish themselves, and morale erodes when war becomes routine. Pressure builds on both sides. For the Achaeans, time has become an enemy. Kings who left their homelands as young men now command armies grown restless. Glory delayed risks turning into doubt. The longer Troy stands, the weaker the coalition becomes. Unity must be renewed through action. For the Trojans, endurance has hardened into resolve, but also fatigue. The city has held, but holding is not the same as winning. Each season the enemy remains as proof that the war is unfinished. To end it, the balance must be broken outside the walls. And so movement begins. Trojan forces assemble beyond the gates, not in haste, but with intention. Infantry forms first, shields locking into familiar patterns. Chariots maneuver on the edges, where speed and space still matter. Commanders move along the line, ensuring cohesion before release. Across the plain, the Achaean host answers in kind. Leaders step forward. Formations tighten. Men who have fought together for years take their places without instruction. They know this ground. They know the enemy. They know that retreat, once begun, may never stop. This meeting is not accidental. It is chosen. The plain between Troy and the sea becomes the stage where all previous choices converge, alliances made, patience spent, chances missed. Geography leaves no ambiguity. Both sides are committed. Both understand the cost. As the distance closes and the lines solidify, the war that once stretched across years and seas contracts into something simpler and far more dangerous. The road to conflict ends here. This war is fought by armies, but it is shaped by men. On the Achaean side, command is not singular. It is negotiated, asserted, and constantly tested. Agamemnon of Mycenae stands at the center of this fragile hierarchy. He is the wealthiest of the kings, ruler of a palace whose storerooms and walls proclaim authority. His leadership rests not on universal loyalty, but on leverage, ships supplied, warriors promised, spoils divided. He commands because the coalition needs him to. Yet Agamemnon does not fight alone, nor does he rule unchallenged. Around him stand other kings, each commanding their own contingents, each guarding their honor as fiercely as their lives. Among them is Achilles, the most dangerous warrior in the Achaean host. His presence is both asset and risk. He fights not for territory or tribute, but for personal honor, and when that honor is threatened, even Agamemnon's authority bends. The balance of power within the camp is unstable, capable of sudden fracture. Across the field, Troy's command is more unified, but no less burdened. King Priam rules from the city, an elder monarch presiding over survival rather than conquest. Decisions are shaped by preservation, of family, of allies, of a city that has already endured too much. His authority is moral and symbolic, grounded in lineage and tradition rather than force. On the field itself, that responsibility falls to Hector. Hector commands not because he seeks glory, but because no one else can bear the weight. He is Troy's shield, trusted by allies, respected by enemies, bound to the city by duty rather than ambition. He understands both the strength of Troy's position and its limits. Walls can hold only so long. At some point, defense must become decision. Behind Hector stand Trojan allies drawn from across the region, commanders whose loyalty is conditional, whose patience is finite. Their presence strengthens Troy's line, but it also narrows its options. Failure here will not only cost the city, it will dissolve the alliance holding it together. These two command structures face one another across the plain. One side held together by ambition and rivalry, the other by necessity and shared risk. Neither is perfectly stable. Both depend on choices made in the next few hours. Authority will be tested not in council but in motion, in whether men advance when ordered, whether lines hold when pressure mounts, whether leaders can impose will amid chaos. As the formations settle and commanders take their places, the war narrows once more. Soon, leadership will no longer be abstract. It will be measured in survival. The first movement is cautious. Across the plain, the lines advance not in a rush, but with restraint, shields lifted, spacing measured, eyes fixed forward. The ground between the armies begins to shrink, each step deliberate, each pace a commitment that cannot be undone. Dust rises under thousands of feet, hanging low in the still air. The Trojans move first. From the gates, Hector leads the advance, keeping his line tight as it descends onto the open ground. Infantry holds the center, shields overlapping, spears angled outward. Chariots range along the edges, not yet charging, but testing space, probing for weakness. This is controlled aggression, a show of confidence meant to press the enemy back without overextending. The Achaeans respond by anchoring their line. Infantry locks shields, forming a wall designed to absorb impact rather than break it. Behind them, champions shift position, ready to surge forward where pressure builds. There is no shouting yet, no wild advance. Discipline holds. Both sides understand that disorder now would be fatal later. Then the distance closes enough for contact. Javelins arc forward not in volleys, but in scattered throws meant to disrupt rhythm and provoke reaction. Shields take the blows with dull, hollow strikes. A man stumbles, another steps into the gap. The line holds, barely, and the first blood darkens the dust. Momentum begins to form. Trojan units press harder along the center, seeking to force the Achaeans backward toward their ships. The choice is deliberate. The sea behind the enemy is a boundary as dangerous as any wall. If the Achaean line bends too far, retreat will turn into panic. Sensing the pressure, Achaean leaders commit reserves. Small advances push outward from the center, countering the Trojan surge with controlled violence. Spears thrust, shields crash together. The noise swells from scattered impact into a continuous roar, bronze on bronze, breath on breath. No side breaks. These opening moves are not decisive, but they matter. They test resolve, expose weaknesses, and drain the confidence of those who expected an easy advantage. Every man now knows this battle will not be won quickly. The field becomes a place of grinding contact. Forward, back, then forward again, each shift measured in lives and ground. As the struggle deepens and the lines strain under sustained pressure, one truth becomes unavoidable. This fight will not be decided by formation alone. It will require a moment, a break, a gamble, a force unleashed beyond caution. And that moment is coming. Control gives way to force. What begins as measured advance hardens into sustained collision, the kind that grinds men down rather than sweeping them aside. The center of the field becomes a living mass, shields locked, bodies pressed close, space reduced to inches, spears snap, bronze dents. Men fall and others step over them without pause, driven by pressure from behind and fear of what waits if they give ground. The Trojan push intensifies. Hector commits more of his strength to the center, driving forward with the intention of breaking the Achaean line outright. The decision is bold and dangerous. It concentrates force where resistance is strongest. But success here would force the enemy back toward the shore, collapsing their cohesion and exposing their rear. For a moment, it works. The Achaean line bends. Sections give ground under sustained pressure, feet sliding in blood-darkened dust. The noise becomes constant, shouts swallowed by impact, commands lost in the crush. In places, order dissolves into individual struggle, survival narrowed to the man directly in front of you. Then, resistance stiffens. Achaean champions surge into the gaps, countering momentum with sudden violence. Small breakthroughs are sealed almost as quickly as they appear. What looks like collapse resolves into containment. The line does not shatter. It absorbs, contracts, and holds. Along the flanks, the fight turns fluid. Chariots dart in and out, seeking openings where formations thin. Infantry units pivot to meet them, shields turning, spears lowering. Each maneuver forces a response. Each response costs time and blood. No movement goes unanswered. The field becomes a shifting puzzle of pressure points and reaction. The battle stretches on. Heat builds. Arms grow heavy. Fatigue settles deep into muscle and breath. This is no sudden clash of heroes, but endurance warfare, minutes extending into hours, strength measured not in bursts, but in the ability to keep standing. At the center, Hector presses forward again, personally rallying his men. His presence stabilizes the Trojan advance, restoring cohesion where it begins to fray. For Troy, this is the critical effort, the point where commitment replaces caution. The Achaeans feel it. Their line strains under renewed assault. Every step back brings the sea closer, the ships more visible, the cost of failure sharper. Retreat is no longer abstract. It is physical, visible, immediate. And yet still, the line holds. The clash reaches its peak, not in a single decisive blow, but in sustained grinding violence where neither side can disengage without risking collapse. The field is no longer open ground. It is a locked struggle, a battle of will as much as strength. Something must give, not because of exhaustion alone, but because battles of this scale demand resolution. Momentum cannot remain balanced forever. Somewhere along the line, a decision or a mistake will tip the weight. As the fighting rages and the pressure reaches its limit, the war narrows once more toward a single question: who will break first? The balance breaks not with a roar, but with a shift. After hours of sustained pressure, fatigue begins to expose what discipline can no longer conceal. Gaps appear where formations thin, movements slow where urgency once ruled. Along the Trojan line, forward momentum falters, not everywhere, not at once, but enough for the enemy to feel it. The Achaeans sense the change. Where they have held, they now begin to press back. Small counterattacks form, focused and deliberate, striking at sections of the Trojan advance that have moved too far, too fast. These are not sweeping charges, but sharp intrusions, moments where cohesion matters more than courage. At the center, the fight tightens around its leaders. Hector remains forward, refusing to yield ground, rallying men who have already given everything they have. His presence steadies the line, but it also anchors him to the most dangerous part of the field. Each step he takes to reinforce the advance pulls him deeper into the struggle, farther from the safety of the walls behind him. Across from him, Achaean champions concentrate their force. They do not seek the collapse of the entire Trojan army, not yet. They seek a fracture, a moment where pressure, exhaustion, and fear align. When it comes, it is sudden. A Trojan unit gives way under combined assault, its withdrawal rippling outward as neighboring men instinctively step back to fill the space. The line does not break completely, but it bends enough. That hesitation is costly. The Achaeans surge into the opening, widening it through sustained pressure. What was once a controlled advance becomes a contested retreat. Orders are shouted, signals are missed, movement loses synchronization. For the Trojans, the risk becomes clear. If the line continues to give ground here, retreat will not lead cleanly back to the gates. It will unravel on the plain, turning defense into pursuit, the most dangerous transition any army can face. Hector recognizes it immediately. He moves to stabilize the breach, committing himself where the danger is greatest. This decision changes everything. Leadership becomes vulnerability. In pressing forward to hold the line, Hector exposes himself to the full violence of the fight. Around him, the struggle intensifies, drawing attention, drawing force, drawing fate toward a single point. The battle no longer belongs to formations. It belongs to moments, to whether resolve can overcome exhaustion, whether one stand can reverse a weakening line, whether a single decision can arrest collapse. The outcome now hangs on the narrowest margin, and the cost of failure has never been higher. The fighting does not end all at once. What breaks first is momentum. The Trojan advance stalls, then yields, step by costly step, back across the ground it fought so hard to claim. This is not a rout. It is a controlled withdrawal under pressure, shields raised, wounded carried when possible, order preserved where leadership still holds. The Achaeans do not pursue recklessly. They have learned the danger of overextension on this plain. Instead, they press just enough to ensure the field is theirs, reclaiming ground inch by inch, forcing the Trojans back toward the protection of their walls. The struggle loosens its grip, transforming from constant collision into scattered clashes that fade as distance opens between the lines. By the time the Trojans reach the gates, the day's decision is clear. Troy still stands. Its walls remain unbreached. But the attempt to break the enemy in the open has failed. The cost is written across the plain. Bodies left where they fell, shields abandoned, weapons snapped and trampled into the earth. Loss is heavy on both sides, measured not in exact numbers, but in the absence of familiar faces when formations reform. For the Trojans, the consequences are immediate. The field beyond the walls is lost for now. Allies who bled on the plain weigh their commitment more carefully. Confidence, once renewed by forward momentum, erodes under the knowledge that even unity and resolve could not deliver victory. Inside the city, the war returns to endurance. For the Achaeans, the result is less visible, but no less significant. They hold the ground. Their ships remain secure. The coalition survives another day without fracture. Yet the battle has taken its toll. Leaders count losses, weigh remaining strength, and confront a truth they can no longer avoid. Troy will not fall through force alone, not quickly, not by honorable combat in the open. The war shifts again, from clash to calculation, from hope of decision to acceptance of delay. As night approaches, fires flicker across both camps. Wounded men are tended. The living speak quietly of what they saw, what they lost, what still lies ahead. No songs are sung, no victory is proclaimed, only survival is acknowledged. The plain that promised resolution delivers only continuation. And the war endures. The battle fades, but its meaning does not. No walls fall, no city burns, and yet the consequences of this day reach far beyond the plain where it was fought. The failure to decide the war in open combat marks a turning point, not toward victory, but toward transformation. What cannot be resolved by strength must be resolved by endurance, ingenuity, and time. For Troy, survival becomes its identity. The city endures not because it conquers, but because it refuses to break. Its walls, its alliances, and its leadership hold long enough to frustrate even the most determined assault. Each failed attempt to force decision in the open reinforces a truth both sides now understand. Troy will not be taken by courage alone. For the Achaeans, the lesson cuts deeper. Their coalition, built on ambition and honor, confronts its limits. Years of fighting have proven that valor cannot substitute for resolution. The war demands something different, a departure from tradition, from heroic expectation, from the belief that victory must come face to face on the field. It is in this realization that the war's future takes shape. Later generations will remember Troy not only as a city under siege, but as a boundary between an age of heroes and an age of consequence. The stories that survive will blur history and memory, elevating individuals, simplifying causes, transforming exhaustion into epic. But beneath the legend lies a harder truth. The conflict at Troy reflects a world on the edge of collapse. Not long after, the networks that sustained Bronze Age civilization will fracture. Trade routes will fail. Cities will fall silent. Writing will disappear from much of the Aegean. Troy will not stand alone in ruin, it will be one of many. And yet, Troy endures in another way. Not in stone, but in story. Because this war, unresolved and costly, becomes a mirror held up to human ambition, a reminder that endurance can rival strength, that pride can prolong suffering, and that history is shaped as much by what fails to end as by what does. The plain grows quiet. The walls still stand. And the world moves, slowly, toward change.